Welcome to the latest episode of Five on the Floor on the Five Reasons Sports Network. Thanks for joining us on your favorite podcast app. On Apple, recommend Apple Podcasts. On Android, recommend Spotify. Also, check out the Five Reasons YouTube channel for daily Dolphins reports, Inter Miami, Messi coverage, and more. Also, Off the Floor, that's our Discord server, $2.99 per month. Link right here in the description. You'll bypass the Apple upcharge. Place for the most heat, information, and conversation. It's Off the Floor. Also, Prize Picks. Use the code 5 FIVE. Legal in the state of Florida. I've been hitting on baseball lately. You should be following me. Use the code 5 FIVE. Get your $50 to play right away. And now, today's episode.
Mercy, luxurious, Heat Nation, yeah, Mercy and Lago, down to Biscayne, yay, five on the floor, ride for my dogs, where here's the thing, you can check the score, hustle hard, couple scars, wearing rubber frauds, down to Biscayne. Kept the floor playing, got it all banned. Y'all seen the block, stop with one hand. And Pat we trust, Inspire have the guts. We're here to bring the heat, y'all can hang it up.
Welcome to Five on the Floor, a daily insider show on the Miami Heat and the NBA, featuring Ethan Skolnick, Greg Sylvander, Alex Toledo, Brady Hawk, and others from the Five Reasons Sports Network. Also, make sure to subscribe to Off the Floor for the most heat anywhere.
All right, welcome back to Five on the Floor. Here's today's floor plan. We're taking a break from the two series that we're doing, one on the 2006 title. We're in the 20th anniversary season, so we'll be commemorating that with a series of episodes. And we're also doing a present and future series. That's the past. We're doing present and future related to the state of the Heat. So Alex Toledo is with me today. You can follow him at Tropical Blanket. He's already had his episode. Brady and Greg are up next. They have to pick a word. Alex picked the word satisfactory, not satisfied. Adele and others from our network will be joining over the next few days. We'll get their views on it with their particular perspectives. But a little bit of news here, and not great news. Haywood Highsmith, who is back with the Miami Heat for one more season, unless there was a trade. He's on one more year under contract. I actually saw him recently at Miami Pro League. And he gave up his number to the new addition, Norm Powell. He gave up the number 24. He's going to be wearing the number 8. Got a little change for that as well. But he's not going to be on the court for a while. He's been in Baltimore lately. He threw out the first pitch at an Orioles game. He's always very present in that area. He was working out up there and apparently hurt his knee. And so he has had knee surgery. The Heat announced it. I don't think anybody really knew a lot about this. And it's a meniscus tear. And based on the recovery time, 8 to 12 weeks, it makes it sound like they repaired it. They didn't shave it. There is a difference between those two things. That timeline, I'm sorry, 8 to 10 weeks, that timeline, if we look at it now, Alex, it's August 8th as we're recording this. So 8 weeks out, kind of beginning of October. Media day is typically sort of that last Monday of September, and then training camp starts. That's going to be at FAU this year. They don't go to the Bahamas because you can't go overseas every other year. So it kind of puts him back sometime between the start of training camp and 2 weeks into it, maybe before the start of the season. And I don't think that they'll rush it. But what we're going to talk about today, first thing, obviously, sorry for Haywood, who's been a good performer for them and is on a cheap deal and somebody that we thought would probably plug into the rotation still. And actually, Brady's talked about a lot on recent podcasts he did about his importance with that second group if they go forward. But it also does create some opportunities for others in the short term. So your thoughts first on the injury to Haywood, and then I think we're going to devote the rest of this episode to, I hate to frame it this way, but who benefits? I mean, who can catch Spo's eye in the meantime?
Yeah, well, as far as just the injury itself, it's unfortunate, man. Like there's not much more to say about it other than that. It sucks for Haywood, who, is on the last year of a deal, and this is going to be a really important year for him as far as securing, like how many more big contracts does he have? And he hasn't actually ever had a big contract. Like this one that he's currently on is the biggest one he's ever been on. He was probably looking forward to maybe a more long-term one, even if it isn't like an extremely like lucrative deal, per year on average. And I think this absolutely affects it because even though he'll be back early in the season, it sounds like based on the timeline that you laid out, we don't know how he's gonna come back. We don't know if, some of the guys that we're going to talk about might just kind of get out in front of him as far as like the spot in the rotation if they're just playing better. Like there are guys who kind of can fill in more or less to some of the stuff he does, right? Like skill set wise. And then there are other guys who provide other things. So I think there's going to be like Spo's going to have different things to look at, and we're going to get into that. But just like the Haywood thing now, it's going to be a little bit more up in the air. Where like we literally just did the show like a week ago, you, me, and Brady talking about how he's kind of a lock for the rotation, and I called him a semi-lock, but you know me, like I've always been a Haywood guy. The only reason I didn't even call him a lock was because sometimes like Spo will just take him out of the rotation for times but like he was supposed to be in there. He is good at what he does, and I think Spo trusts him at this point. And now it's like it feels like it's going to put him, a couple of steps back as far as getting that spot back in the rotation, and we'll see how it actually affects him.
Yeah, and so we'll go through some of the other guys who could be in there. I mean, we expected him. I think when we were projecting the rotation, if you're assuming Powell, Hero, Wiggins, Bam, and Ware, then we were kind of assuming Jovic, Mitchell, Haywood, and I was saying Larson. So that's kind of how I had it framed at that time. And then Jaquez is kind of that I don't know, maybe depending on what kind of camp he has. Obviously, we don't expect Rozier to be in there. We don't expect the rookie to be in there. But I think I want to focus most on two players in particular that played together at Arizona. I think those are the two guys who could benefit opportunity-wise here the most, although maybe Jaquez does too. So let me set the scene, and then on the other side of this, we'll get to it. I think Larson's a rotation guy anyway, but if he really defends at a high level in camp, then I feel like Spoelstra is going to be more comfortable playing him more minutes, and that could lead to Haywood not getting as many reps when he comes back, especially if Larson is making shots. I know they don't play the exact same position, but we're a little bit positionless here. But I do think that with the summer league that Larson had, where they clearly were projecting him for a rotation spot, putting the ball in his hands more, making him more of potentially a secondary ball handler if that has to happen, his ability to get to the line, draw contact, not something necessarily that Haywood does. Haywood is a better shooter than Larson. I think at this point, Haywood has had to make himself that. I feel more comfortable with Haywood taking a shot in the corner than I would Larson. And Haywood is a more accomplished defender, but Larson has defensive chops. We've seen that so far. I think Larson is the one guy who was in the rotation anyway, who probably gets more minutes. But let me ask you this. Of the two guys that we weren't sure about the rotation, Keyshawn Johnson has an athletic profile that Haywood doesn't have, and he has a defensive mindset, but he doesn't do some of the things that Haywood does, especially make those shots. And he hasn't proven at this level. And I thought he was pretty uneven at Summer League until like one game, and then Eric Glass kind of took responsibility for that. But there was really only one game that Keyshawn popped. And then there's Jaquez, who obviously has a totally different skill set. Who do you think Spo would lean into more?
Well, between those two guys, I would definitely say Jaquez. For as much as I've been intrigued with like what Kashad can do that others can't, and I wouldn't be against him playing. It just feels like there's too many guys ahead of him still, even with that standard contract that he got, where a lot of people were low key like complaining, why'd you give him a standard when you're in this tax situation and all that? You could have given him a two-way. It's not like, you know what I mean? Like he earned it by playing on the court last season. Like they just didn't play him. But it's not even about that at this point. I just think in general, there's too many guys, whether not necessarily in his position class, but just in general, guys that are in front of him in the rotation. And I think Jaquez is the clear guy here who I think benefits, because I don't think it's going to be a guarantee. And maybe I'll save the rest of my answer for the second half of the show. But between Jaquez and Kashad, I do think it's, the easy answer there is Jaime, because he was the guy who, was already a standout rookie. And even though it had such a underwhelming sophomore season, I just think since it's kind of a similar position, a guy who's already played and has a little bit more of a resume there, I think he's the guy that you play. I think Kashad still has a little bit more to go. Like he's clearly gotten some work done as far as, the shot, as far as his body and getting stronger, right? But he's still limited. And look, for as much as Jaime struggled last year, he's just, he was so good as a rookie. that I would be shocked if he went to Kashad before he went to Jaime.
All right, I want to get to it on the other side because I agree with you for the most part, but you made a point about the standard contracts. I want to get into that in a second. Before we do, listen, you can't protect yourself on the court all the time. You never know what's going to happen, but you can protect your money. Yes, you can protect your money, especially from scams. You've got to use Cash App. When it comes to your money, you deserve to feel safe from fraud and in control, and that's exactly what you get with Cash App. With Cash App, you can spend, save, and live your life knowing your money is right where you left it. With advanced built-in security protections you can count on and help when you need it. Spend with peace of mind today and order a Cash App card in the app or at cash.app/card. Also, for a limited time only, new Cash App customers can use our exclusive code to earn some additional cash. For real, just download Cash App, use our exclusive referral code on the floor. That's on the floor in your profile. Send $5 to a friend within 14 days and you get $10 dropped right into your account. Terms apply. That's money. That's Cash App. Cash App is a financial services platform, not a bank. Banking services provided by Cash App's bank partners. Prepaid debit cards issued by Sutton Bank, member FDIC. Instant discounts provided by Cash App, a Block Inc. brand. Visit cash.app/legal/podcast for full disclosures. Okay, I'm with you. If Hawkins doesn't play now, I don't know when it's going to happen, right? Like he comes into camp, and as a guy who was all rookie in his first season, you've got to figure they're going to give him every opportunity to fit somewhere. Okay, and so now this creates a little bit of an avenue. And the other thing to say on this is, look, the Heat's timelines can't be trusted. We know that. Go back to Deion Waiters 6 to 8 weeks and all that. When they put out a timeline like that, that's more specific than they typically are. But we've also seen in the past that it takes longer. And even if a guy's a fast healer, the Josh Richardson situation a couple of years ago sort of stands out to me. Like, never really sort of got right. I think they're going to be careful with this. Again, they Haywood is somebody they value. He's also in the last year of his deal. He could be a possible trade chip, as a throw-in during the season. You don't want him injured much longer, and they don't have a lot of specialist types like him. So I think they're gonna take their time. So Hawkes should have an opportunity. But I will throw this out there because you hit on something. If Johnson doesn't show something now, after they've given him the standard, and look, he's a hardworking kid. He says all the right things. I like him. I like his athletic profile. But again, he didn't really boom in Larson did. Larson, showed a lot. Johnson to me was, didn't really show, okay, that's standard contract worthy during summer league. So now Haywood, who I've seen as one of the guys in his way, even if not directly in his way right now, if Johnson doesn't get, doesn't show Spo something now, I gotta think that this is a player that they may move on from sooner rather than later, right? I mean, Orlando Robinson was one of those guys. Like they spent a couple years on that, and then finally just kind of said, okay, this, he's just too slow-footed, not gonna. These are different issues with Johnson. But what do you think? Because that's where I view this. Because you're right, they're so close to the tax lines. They're trying to deal with all that. They're trying to juggle all that, and they gave a standard contract to an undrafted free agent who they like, but hasn't really been given the opportunity or done much yet.
I'm with you in the sense that he hasn't done much yet, but I'm not with you in the sense that I think it's too early for that thinking as far as whether they move on from him or not. They very well might, but I think he hasn't even really gotten a shot yet, and I just think it's been too cramped as far as all the guys in front of him. It feels like, I'm going to bring back a classic here that I know some fans love, that they look at him as another second round pick. Right. Where they kind of, he was, to be fair, on that show that we did the night of the draft, when they drafted we previewed the second round, because that was when they first started doing, the first night, first round, second night, second round. We previewed the second round for the Heat. And we I believe Brady and I both mentioned Larson and Kashad as guys that we would like for the Heat to take with their second round pick. And maybe that's just me using my own, that's confirmation bias, because I looked at him as a potential second round pick. But they're kind of treating him that way, right? Like, they're not treating him like your standard two-way guy. They're treating him like a guy who's just on the team. He got the standard before, and I know that it was probably going to go to Drew if he didn't get injured. But the fact that they gave it to Kashad before he even necessarily, quote-unquote, earned it by playing his way out of it, feels like he's a step above, right, in the way that they look at him compared to other two-way guys. And so I don't think he's there yet as far as that fork in the road where maybe they just move on from him. I wouldn't be surprised if they did, but I still think it's not just Jaime. I think there's a couple of guys here that we haven't even mentioned yet as far as who can benefit from Haywood being out, especially if, like you say, they take their time with it, which I could totally see them doing that. We're forgetting about Simone Fontecchio. Fontecchio is a 3-4 type of guy. Like he plays, he's a forward, and obviously it's a very different skill set. But he was a guy who, like Brady and I both mentioned, as a guy who I think can be like the 9th, 10th man, right? And now with Haywood out of the way, I think he's gonna be in there. I think he's likely gonna be in there. And I might, like, if I had to put money, I might put money on him over Jaquez in the rotation. I think Larson is surefire. I thought he was before, but now it's like 100%, right? Like in the rotation. But the Fontecchio thing, he doesn't replace Haywood, but I think they already needed shooting. He's a guy who gives you like good wing size, and I think can play either position. And then here's the other thing we got to factor, right? Like, does Spo just go back to a little bit of the quote unquote small ball stuff where he's playing, guards and wings and then one big when it's not Bam and Word together on the floor, right? And let's say like Jovic has already played his minutes, right? So in the minutes where it's no Jovic and one of Bam or Ware, like I could see Wiggins playing those minutes at the 4. I could see Fontecchio playing those minutes at the 4. Like those guys, they kind of check off the boxes for what a small ball 4 looks like for Spo. Like they've played way smaller guys there before, including Haywood Highsmith. Like Wiggins and Fontecchio
Wiggins reminds me of Deng.
There you go.
In terms of the way that Spo could use him if he chose to go that direction, I do think that's a discussion we should have more of, because I think that's going to end up being part of the closing lineup. And we've talked about that I think that the closing lineup ultimately, with Haywood or not with Haywood, was going to end up being most nights Bam, Wiggins, Powell, Hero, and Mitchell. I just think that's where Spo is going to head with the finishing group. And when I had Gio on, we discussed that, Brady as well. We'll close with this, okay? I get what you're saying. But if he ends up going to Fontecchio, a player who there's been speculation they might even waive and stretch, although that hasn't happened lately. It hasn't happened yet. Now I think it's less
likely.
People
the information, the deadline to waive and stretch a player is the 29th of this month.
Of August, correct. So if they don't do it by then they're not doing it. But I know there were some reports that was going to happen, but the reports came out of Italy, I believe. I haven't heard that specifically. I heard it was a possibility when they acquired him, but I haven't heard that was the direction they were moving. And now that would seem to be less likely. You're right. But we keep talking about going young. And if Haywood's out and it creates an opportunity for Larson, we think is automatic anyway, but it creates opportunity for Jaquez or Johnson, and Fontecchio ends up getting those minutes, the 30-year-old shooter that they acquired as a possible wave and stretch candidate, we're going to start having those conversations again, because I do think Jaime has to grab this. Okay,
exactly.
Like we talk about Johnson.
Earn it.
Jaime, he has to earn it. Right, he has to grab this. Okay, I think that's where we're at. All right, we'll do more episodes as we go forward. Brady's got his time on the clock coming up with his word to describe the state of the Heat, and then we'll have Greg do his as well. I'm not going to let Greg's be euphoric.
Me and you, 2 straight episodes under 20 minutes. How about that?
Well, we're pushing it now. 18:32. Have a good one, everybody.
Thank you for listening to the 5 on the Floor on the 5 Reasons Sports Network. After all, someone needs to listen to my dad.